What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course my 2019 Ford Mustang Bullitt. And so full disclosure, this is my personal car that I did buy, so obviously I really love it. But I'm still going to do this review the same way I do all my reviews and show you both the pros and the cons of the 2019 Mustang Bullitt here. But first off, the looks of it. Man, I just love the look. And I'm not alone, by the way. The actual guy that designed the S550 generation of Mustang here, he even says this is his favorite Mustang design-wise because it doesn't rely on any scoops or spoilers. It's just a clean, pure, simple design that relies on just the body lines of the vehicle and nothing else. So right up front there, you have no pony badge. You know, you just have the little bit of a chrome outline there to kind of highlight just how wide that new grille is from 2018 that is now, you know, of course, carried over to the 2019s. Same great headlights and stuff that I've really warmed over to. Honestly, whenever I first saw the 2018 refresh, I didn't love it, but over the past, you know, year and a half, 2 years here now, I absolutely love this front end now, and I think it really fits the Bullitt well. Other things here, you have this awesome new hood here on the 18s and 19s that it just has so many more curves than the previous hood. It doesn't come up quite as high whenever you're, you know, from the driver's seat. It doesn't look quite as bold, but whenever you're outside here, it looks so sweet. I love these hood vents that you have that are functional. The passenger side one is actually a vent, but I also just love how it's inspired by the 1968 and 67 hoods, where you have these lines that, these creases that come through the hood. You also have these parts that dip down here closer to the fenders, and that's actually inspired by the GT350 and its hood. And so it just makes for a really cool looking hood. And then coming down to the fenders here, the Bullitt has no fender badges, no 5.0 badge, but again, that pays homage to the movie car, which didn't have any badges on it or anything as well. And of course, you have these awesome black torque thrust wheels, 19 inches. And I also love that it's got a little bit of a meteor sidewall on these Michelin Pilot Sport 4s. You know, the 40 series sidewalls, both front and back, and that gives it a little bit more of a muscle car look, a little more old school look than doing a super skinny, thin sidewall, which I really like the way they did that. You also have the red Brembo brakes that stand out here, and that pays homage to the 2001 version of the Bullitt, which also had the red Brembo brakes. Going down to the sides there, it's just, again, I just love the lines of these Mustangs with a fastback roofline you have here, and you also have the chrome trim there along the sides. It's another unique Bullitt thing. I also did a complete video detailing all the differences between the Bullitt and a regular GT, so you can watch that if you're curious for all the things. I'm just going to hit the highlights in this video. Going out back there, you have the same great beautiful tail lamps that they redid for 2018 here. I have a little bit of a angled concavity, I like to call it. Again, pays homage to the 67 and 68, which again fits into the Bullitt homage, which is you know, a 1968 Mustang GT fastback. So really the perfect timing for all this, and so that looks great. I also love the faux gas cap you have there in the back, which has the Bullitt logo, and is the only Bullitt logo here on the outside. You know, otherwise it's very discreet, and again, you only know what this is if you know what it is. Otherwise, you know, everyone else is kind of, it's a guessing game and they don't really know what it is, which I personally like. I like flying under the radar. This dark Highland green really does a good job of that as well. It's a beautiful color, especially here in the sunlight. It really pops, and so overall from every angle I think it's just a really good look. Right, for the interior of the 2019 Mustang Bullitt here, well, it's a very cool place to be, of course. First thing though, sitting down in these seats, you have these nice leather seats here. Now this is the standard seat option, which is free in the Bullitt. You can pay like an extra $1,600 for Recaros, and they do have a little bit more aggressive bolstering, but from what I haven't gone on a road trip in one, but from what I've heard, they're not quite as comfortable over long distances. You also lose the heating, cooling, and the power function of the seat. And if you have the electronics package with memory like I do, you lose the memory option as well since they're not powered. So, you know, for free seats that retain all those great features that I personally really wanted, you know, the heating and cooling of the seats is really nice. These seats are really, really great. I mean, they're the same shape as any other seats in any other 15 to 19 Mustangs, but just a really great, I really love the designs of these seats. I mean, there's really nice torso support, you know, still nice, thick, beefy bolsters, and you have really great thigh support as well, too, with bolsters that come up nice and high. And the pattern is a little bit unique here in the Bullitt too, where you have more of these, I guess, ribs than you do in a regular GT, and so that's a cool little differentiator. It also has green stitching everywhere in here. It's dark green, so it's very subtle. It doesn't pop a whole lot, but it's just a really nice subtle touch. But overall, like I said, really great seats. I've used these same seats, in several Mustangs that I've owned in the past. Really great for, long trips and stuff. Just overall fantastic seats. Next, the steering wheel here in the Bullitt, which is the same as any other Mustang, but is just a really great steering wheel. Of course, it has the Bullitt badge here. That's the only other unique thing about it. But, for 18, they actually improved the leather and made it a little thicker and a little, I guess, smoother feeling for this leather. And it just makes it feel a little more expensive, I think, and just is a really great steering wheel that has an awesome 9-3 grip, nice little 10-2 notches, and just a nicely sized wheel too. I really love it. You have some metal accents here on it that also look really nice and are actually cool to the touch. You do have a little more of a button setup than you usually have with other steering wheels. There are a lot of buttons here. Honestly, though, it's not overwhelming, and once you get used to it, it's fine. At first it might seem like a lot, but really not too bad. And so overall, a really great steering wheel. Next are the gauges here in the Bullitt. Now the Bullitt gets the standard digital gauges. If you go for any other Mustang from 18 to 19, these are optional in the 401A package. And so all the Bullitts are based on basically a 401A vehicle. So that's why you have like the padding around your knees. It's nice and soft. This whole center console area is a little nicer feeling, and not quite as hard as the hard plastic in regular Mustangs. More of that stitching and everything just looks a little more premium. But anyway, so you get the digital gauges as standard here in the Bullitt. Really awesome gauges. I love how whenever you start them up, you see the actual front end of the new Bullitts, so it's just different. Usually you just see a pony emblem there whenever you turn it on in regular Mustangs, but I just love these gauges. I think they're really, really cool. One little con about the gauges, though, as you can probably see here from the video, they do like to glare at certain angles. So, that's one thing where, normal analog gauges will be a little bit better. But I personally thought, I prefer analog gauges, but after living with these digital gauges, they are really, really cool, and I love them. And so I'm really happy that's standard here in the Bullitt. And, they're so customizable, and so you have, for example, the pony button here. That'll bring up all your different menus as far as changing your My mode for driving mode. You can kind of customize that a little bit. You also have, your active valve performance exhaust and the 4 different modes for that. And, you can make it as quiet or as loud as you want, which I really love, and I'll talk more about in a few minutes. And then you have the quiet start up there, which is called Good Neighbor mode by Ford, which I personally really like as well, to start up a little bit quieter. You have all your other settings there. You have your track apps for measuring 0 to 60 times, all that type of stuff. You also can go in and pull up all your individual gauges. There's launch control. There's so much in these gauges. It's really cool. You also, if you hit the little settings button here on the steering wheel, you'll bring up your fuel economy and other settings that you can configure there and there as well. And so overall, a really great gauge cluster. And you can bring up your audio and your navigation, the turn-by-turn stuff. You can't display a full map or anything like in an Audi, but it is nice. You can have that kind of stuff there, and it'll always display what song you're listening to in the top little bar there, as well as your compass and your outside temperature, which is really nice to have that right in the gauge cluster as well for a quick glance. And so overall, I absolutely love these gauges. They're very customizable too. You can change the colors of them. You can change the look of them. And so overall, really cool setup there for the gauges. Other gauges, though, coming over to the center here, right up top, you'll have an oil pressure gauge and a vacuum gauge, which are analog. They illuminate white during the day here. It's kind of looks dark because of the sunlight here, but they do nicely illuminate white whenever you're driving around during the day. At night, they change with your ambient color, so whatever the ambient lighting is in here, you can change that. Other things here in the center up top, you have the B&O Play speaker, which is new for 19. The B&O Play system is available both in the Bullitt and in regular Mustangs, in the higher trim package. And so this is a really great stereo. I've played with it a little bit. Honestly, I've been too busy listening to the exhaust to listen to the stereo a whole lot, but the few times that I did listen to stereo on longer highway drives and things like that, it is a really nice system. I think the main thing that stands out above the Shaker Pro system in regular, 15 to 18 Mustangs with that upgrade, is that everything just feels or sounds a little clearer. Everything, you can kind of pick out the instruments better. Like, for example, if you're listening to something with lots of different instruments, before it'd be a little more muddy with the Shaker Pro, whereas with this, you can really pick out and hear each individual instrument is more well separated, I guess, if that makes any sense. And so it just gives it extra clarity, and it also is just very nice and powerful with that subwoofer there in the trunk. And so I'm not an audiophile, so I can't get really much more in depth about the B&O Play system than that. Coming over, another thing you see up top here is the Bullitt badge, along with your chassis number. So chassis numbers is how far it is down the line, so mine, of course, you can see is 95, so that means it's the 95th Bullitt built. Now, it doesn't correspond with the VIN number. For example, my VIN number is lower than the 95, but that's just, you know, kind of, they don't build them in sequence of VIN, so that's why those numbers are different. But cool to see what number yours was as far as, you know, how far along in production it was, and nice to have another little tasteful Bullitt badge there. You also have the spun aluminum dashboard here, which is a different pattern than what you see on a normal GT performance package. Those also have an aluminum spun design, but this is a different, it's a broader stroke to the spinning motion, I guess. Coming down, you have the awesome Sync 3 infotainment system. It's 8 inches, touchscreen, so easy to use. I absolutely love this. It's really one of the model systems, I think, that right up there with Uconnect and a few of the others as being one of the easiest to use, just so quick and snappy too, and you know, just your basic stuff is all divided up very logically there, very easy to use, and very easy to tune. Thankfully, you still have a volume and tune knob, which are actual metal and feel really nice, have a nice little notchiness to them. But anyway, you know, this one, again, I have the electronics package, which is it includes the B&O Play system, the blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, and navigation, and so that's a nice package to have. I personally didn't care about the navigation because I just use my map on the phone, because this has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto standard on the Sync 3 systems here, which is really great. And so, yeah, I don't really use it a whole lot, but it is nice to have the navigation. And even whenever you're driving, one thing I noticed with the navigation is, you know, it'll have the little mini screen there on the home screen, and it'll always display your speed limits. So that's kind of nice. If you're wondering what the speed limit is, you don't want to plug your phone in or check, it's always there, which is a nice little thing to have for me personally. And also, you'll see your heated steering wheel control here. That's another standard thing with the Bullitt, is heated steering wheel. You do have a CD player. That is one thing for 2019 that is different. You have to get the upgraded B&O Play stereo in order to get a CD player. Otherwise, they're getting rid of CD players in the regular Mustangs. And also, if you don't get the electronics package in the Bullitt, you will not get a CD player. Just because less and less people are using CDs. I personally am really happy to still have a CD player. And so if you want that, you definitely want to get the electronics package, or again, the upgraded stereo in the regular Mustangs. You have your climate controls, which are automatic and very easy to use. You have your heated and cooled seat controls there. All feel really nice too with these metal touches. You also have a new metal start button here. It was introduced in 2018, carries over for 2019, and feels really great. You also have this row of toggle switches here, which are cool to have, and you know, change your drive mode. Also, your steering resistance is there for one of them, and so really nicely done center area here, I think, where it's not too busy, just a few buttons, and I really love it. As far as storage space in the 2019 Bullitt, it's really great, just like any other Mustang. It hasn't changed, but you have a pretty large map pocket here in the door. It does go really far back there. It doesn't have a clear, easy bottle cutout, which is the only thing I can complain about. I wish it had an actual bottle holder, but this is a wide enough space. You could fit a smaller bottle and just lay it down in there. Coming over to the center here, you have a nice little cubby. You'll find a USB jack right up front here, which is nice to still have a USB jack out in the open. The other one is in the center console. Then you also have a power outlet here. And then you have your 2 cup holders, which are nicely illuminated with the ambient lighting, have the little metal trim ring around them, and are great. And then you have the center armrest, which for 2018, they made these softer, and it continues on for 2019 here. Really nice and squishy, really great for resting your elbow on. And you open that up, and you have a pretty deep cubby that is actually nice and wide, has a few little things, you know, for like a coin holder and a little bit of dimension to it there. It's even illuminated, which is really great, but you'll see your USB jack and also a power outlet in there as well. One other little cool storage space is a sunglasses holder you have here on the left-hand side. Backseat space in all the Mustangs is the same, and you know, it's a tighter back seat. It's not as roomy as the Challenger, but I would say it's a little roomier than the Camaro. And so, you know, I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I do just barely fit back there. You know, it's a little limited, but you know, overall a pretty decent and usable space. Again, I wouldn't want to use it every day. You know, these seats in the front here do fold forward, but it's not super easy the way that it works. And so personally, you know, I wouldn't want to use those seats every day, but in a pinch, it's nice to have a back seat that is still actually usable for most people. I'd say under 6 feet tall, you know, can fit comfortably back there for a little while. And for kids, it's great. You can put them back there and they'll have plenty of space. And so overall, you know, pretty good back seat for a vehicle of this class. Trunk space in the Bullitt is, again, same as any other Mustang. You'll see it's a pretty decently sized trunk. It's not as deep as, you know, the Challenger, but I would say it's about on par with the Camaro. It's got a nice wide opening, so you can fit, you know, golf clubs, things like that in there. You'll also see the B&O Play subwoofer there in the alcove of the one side of the trunk. And, you know, it could be a little bit deeper, you know, but it is pretty good for fitting in most things. The rear seats do also fold flat, so you can pass through things. And then beneath the floor there, you'll see just an air pump and a well for where you could have a spare tire. All right, so start to go for a drive. All fours here for 2018, now 2019 have these larger keys. They're a little chunkier. I personally prefer the older keys better because they're slimmer, easier to fit in your pocket, but it is a very high quality feeling key. It has a nice weight to it. Of course, the Mustangs have the unique Mustang pony there, and it actually is recessed. It's a really nice thing. You also have metal buttons here on the back of it, and just overall a really nice key. I just, again, wish it was smaller. Keys should be getting smaller, not bigger, as technology progresses. But anyway, not a huge deal. And of course, this keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it roars to life. All right, so setting off the 2019 Mustang Bullitt. So there's so much to take in. First thing though, I think, is the exhaust here, which even at low RPMs just has a really nice burble, and on the overrun, it has these crackles and pops that just sounds so good. Another thing you notice right off the bat is with 2018, when they changed these hoods, it's definitely a flatter hood. It's not quite as exciting looking as the 15 to 17s with their like spears that came up the size of the hood there. And I do miss the hood vent turn signals my 2016 GT had, but still, actually improves visibility though because of this lower hood. It's not a massive difference, but it's just a little bit of a difference, and it is nice to have. Other things to note here, visibility, otherwise is excellent in the Bullitt. You have pretty thin A-pillars here. You have a mirror that's separated out, so you don't have it blocking your visibility by the A-pillar area. You have a pretty large side window, definitely easier to see out of than the Camaros and stuff. And view out of the back is also pretty good for a coupe with a nice large window, and so a really good view there. Other things you notice right off the bat, the steering weight in normal mode is really great. Has a little bit of feel to it, not a ton, but does just have a really nice weight to it, and throttle response is very immediate too, thanks to it having, obviously being naturally aspirated, no turbos or anything like that. So very, very precise. Other things, as we're going through the gears here, it's just, it's such a rich exhaust sound. I absolutely love it. If you want to go cliff notes here, my favorite thing about the Bullitt is the exhaust. It just sounds so good. But as we're shifting through the gears here, the shifter is really nice, has a nice notchiness to it. It's still the same MT82, but it has been improved in 2018. It's the D4 version of the MT82, and I personally really like the way that it feels. I know people have complained about it in the past. I think it's just got a really great feel to it. Another cool thing is that there's active rev match now, which is standard on any 2019 Mustang GT that's a manual, and so the Bullitt gets that, of course, as well. You can turn it on or off, so you don't have to have it if you don't want it or like it, but I personally really love it. So this is just to show you here, I'm in fourth, that's third, perfect downshift, and we can even you get those crackles and pops, even going down to second. I mean, even lower gears like that, and it just is really nice to have. Honestly, it does better than I could, and especially because the clutch is a little tricky here in the Mustangs. It always has been here, especially for the S550. This 6th generation of the Mustang has an odd weight to it, where it's got a spring that sometimes is heavier and sometimes lighter. It's a little trickier. I will say the Mustang clutch isn't one of the best ones for beginners. It takes a little more skill and practice to be smooth with it, and so that's really the only downside about the experience. Otherwise, a really great manual setup to use. And we're on pretty smooth roads here, but one thing I can really say is, my car has the MagnaRide option. That is an option here on both regular, Mustangs and also for the Bullitt. It's like a $1,700 option, and I think it is definitely worth it because it can be customized depending on how, firm or soft you want the suspension. I kind of view the MagnaRide system as like a filter to the suspension. So, whenever you're driving, at normal speed, you're not pushing the vehicle. As far as ride quality differences go between a regular Mustang and one with MagnaRide, I think, is that it really filters out all these small imperfections in the road, so you don't feel every little thing. It kind of glides over the small stuff. You still feel the big stuff about the same as I think you would feel it in a regular, suspension setup in a regular Mustang, but I think it's just a little more controlled. It just, like I said, it just kind of is more able to soak up the little imperfections so much better that it really gives you a smooth ride, and that's just kind of how I've noticed it is, just in daily driving circumstances. Another thing that's interesting to note about the Mustangs, the change they made with all performance package vehicles in 2018, and the Bullitt gets those changes as well, is the taller gearing you have here for the 6-speed manual. So the Bullitts have 373s here. I believe other markets in the world might get a 355, but here in America, 373 rear differential there. And so you would think 373s in any other Mustang, especially the 15 to 17s, meant you had really short gearing, and so, you know, the lower gears there, you really had to shift a lot. That's not the case here with this taller gearing, because even though you have that, you know, limited slip, it's 373, it still takes a little while to kind of wind up because of the taller gearing. It just makes it feel actually a little less punchy at low RPMs, I think, than even my 355 geared Mustang GT manual that I had in the past. So I think it's actually similar to the GT350 in that regard, where I mean, it's not quite as extreme. The GT350 is even more so, where, you know, the lower RPMs you really don't have a whole lot, and actually to some people, I think myself included, feels a little slower than a regular performance pack GT at low RPMs, just because of those tall gears. And this kind of has it's a middle ground with this one, where it's not quite as extreme as the Shelby with the gearing, but it's also not quite as punchy as the 373 performance pack GTs from 15 to 17. So just something to note. I personally don't mind it. It means that I can kind of get on a little bit more and kind of push it, or you can, if you don't want to upshift it, you know, the lower RPMs, you can just wind it out more. So either way, you know, I don't mind it. Just a difference. All right, so I'm going to put it up into the My mode, which I have for track. We're going to put the window down here. The moment you've all been waiting for. Let's turn down onto this back road. First red line run in the 2019 Mustang Bullitt. And here we go. Oh man, it rips in those upper RPMs. Here engine-wise is it has the GT350's intake manifold and the GT350's cold air intake, in addition to a unique tune that gives you that extra 20 horsepower, 480 horsepower, 420 pound-feet of torque. And I can really tell, I mean, you know, the 2018 that I reviewed was just an automatic, so this is my first in a manual, but it really feels like it does pull all the way to that red line instead of dropping off at about 7,000. That's kind of what you get with that better breathing with the GT350 stuff. So we're in the normal mode right now for the drive mode and everything, and you know, the handling is still very good. You know, with the MagnaRide, it feels very buttoned down and well controlled. There isn't any body roll or anything, but it's just a little bit softer and not quite as sharp. But I now have it in the Sport Plus mode here, so the MagnaRide dampers are a little bit firmer. And let's go around some corners here and see how it handles. Now I've, you know, tried out the handling a little bit already, but haven't pushed it too much here. But the first thing is, you know, it's got a little bit of a heavier steering weight. Throttle response is a little more eager whenever you're in the Sport Plus mode here. So everything just feels a little more eager. The exhaust gets a little louder, but you can change that independently. But as we're going into these corners here, you know, lots of elevation changes and stuff. And this is where it handles so well for a vehicle that's as you know, heavy as these are. You know, they're not super light, but it's got such good grip as these Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tires. 255 in the front, 275s in the rear, and I think that's what makes the biggest difference. That was an upgrade they made last year, and I am so glad they improved the tire setup here, because I think that honestly is probably one of the biggest differentiators, I think, to really make this an impressive handler on corners. But you know, this Bullitt package is based on the performance package level 1, so you do have you know, the all the better you know, handling stuff. You have the Brembo brakes, you have the thicker sway bars, the K-brace, all that type of stuff to help give you better handling here. And the curb weight isn't too bad still for these. I mean, you know, they're not light by any means. You know, these weigh anywhere between 3,700 and 3,850. I see you know, different outlets reporting different things. But you know, I would say it definitely feels a little heavier. You know, there's always a little more heft to Mustangs, and the Bullitt in particular, for some reason, the first few times I took it around a corner, I was like, this has a little more weightiness to it, I think, than what I even remember with a regular GT. But that's okay. It definitely, you know, it's not a lightweight. It's not going to feel like a Miata or some type of very precise apex carver, but it still handles so well. I mean, plenty quick enough, you know, around these corners to have fun with, and really impress you. And, you know, for normal street driving and stuff, it's great. I mean, yeah, maybe if you were to push this on a track, you know, over and over again, you might start to find some limitations and ways to make it lighter or grippier or whatever. But on the street here, this thing is fantastic. And, you know, you'll even notice whenever I did my acceleration, there wasn't any kind of crazy wheel spin like you get in some of the other competing vehicles. Again, because of the way this Coyote is tuned, you got all the power in the upper RPMs there. So by the time you're in those higher RPMs, you already have traction, you're already at a high enough speed that puts all that power to the ground. So you're not, you know, wasting any power or horsepower on you know, just spinning tires. I mean, it will do that. It has the line lock. You can do burnouts all day if you want, but you know, it doesn't fight with you. You know, it just works with you and enables you to go faster and faster. And so it's such a good handler that, you know, I think it'll be able to keep up with some really impressive stuff on back roads and put a smile on your face, again, thanks to the wonderful exhaust note that you have, just playing this wonderful tune the whole time you're carving up these back roads here. The brakes also have a wonderful feel to them, but thanks to these Brembos, there's also very little pedal travel before you start getting nice, strong, firm bite out of these brakes, and then they clamp down nice and hard and give you a lot of confidence that this can, you know, get slowed down just as fast as it accelerates if you need it to. And so overall, it's just, oh man, this thing just, it's such a strong puller, especially that mid-range is nice and strong. I absolutely love the way that it feels. All right, but we're gonna do another acceleration here just because I want to try it again. Here we go. It's crazy. Listen to that. Oh, I love it. Oh man, it sounds so awesome. Honestly, and I don't know, I mean, this is probably my own bias because of the movie Bullitt and stuff, but it actually kind of sounds like the movie car in a way, especially at lower RPMs, it really does to me. And at higher RPMs there, it kind of sounds like, I know that in the movie they used the GT40 race car to dub over the actual Mustang in the chase scene, but it sounds like that GT40 race car because of those higher RPMs. It's just, it sounds really good. And they did do some tweaking to this exhaust, I think, a little bit, and also because of, you know, the intake and the tune and stuff, there are some unique things about it. And I think also, I think it was mentioned that they even adjusted the idle to have it sound a little more lopey. And you know, make it sound like an old school muscle car a little bit more. So I think it really pays homage to that stuff, and I really love the Shelby parts on here. It definitely gives you that little extra oomph in the upper RPMs, and it's just addictive. I just want to keep doing it. Okay, so now we're coming out to some tighter corners here. Some of the corners I always review all my cars on here, and let's see how it does around these tighter corners here. So yeah, you definitely feel the weight a little bit more. You feel the nose want to push a little bit. You know, so the handling is definitely, you know, still not as good as like the Camaro, I think, and you know, still better than the Challenger though, for sure. It's still just, it handles so well. Again, these Michelins are all the difference. I mean, it just rips for days. It's just crazy. There's no fuss to it. You know, like I said, you feel the weight and you kind of are dealing with that a little bit, but it doesn't really hold you back because, like I said, these tires just grip and grip and grip. So you just keep doing what you want to do, and nothing in the car really holds you back. It just, you know, keeps up with what I'm asking it to do, and it does it really well. And these brakes, as I'm leaning on them here a little bit, just do so good to just keep it buttoned down. And also, you know, again, because all the, you know, the largest amount of power is in the higher RPMs, you know, you don't feel like the back end's fighting with you. You know, you can give it throttle through the corner, and you're not, you know, doing a huge drift coming out of a corner or anything. You know, it's very manageable, and so it's really friendly in that regard. I'm finding that it's, you know, it's not edgy, it's not scary, it doesn't, you know, make me nervous like I do feel in some other rear-wheel drive sports vehicles whenever I'm, you know, pushing them around corners. This doesn't have that really. It's really well buttoned down. So, I mean, you know, I know a lot of people say, oh, these tires aren't wide enough, we got to go up to 305s or whatever. And with the performance package too, if you need that much grip, go for it, knock yourself out. I personally think this is plenty of grip, again, thanks primarily to the Michelins. If you had Pirellis or something, sure, I could see maybe wanting a wider tire, but you don't need a huge wide tire with these Michelins. They're just so sticky that, you know, these 255s in the front, 275s in the rear, plenty. I have no lack of grip whatsoever at reasonable speeds, you know, on a spirited back road drive. It really does a good job even on these tight corners. And again, it's no Lotus, but for what it is, it handles really, really well. But overall, you know, it's just fantastic. I think the Bullitt is really in a unique spot too. A lot of people have been wrongly comparing it to a Shelby, wrongly comparing it to, you know, Performance Pack Level 1 price-wise and stuff. And if you actually go on the Ford configurator, you can do this yourself. And you don't believe me, you can go on the Ford configurator and pull up, you know, what it costs to do a GT Performance Pack Level 1 with digital gauges, with all the same equipment this comes with. You know, this has the enhanced security packages standard, all those types of things. If you do that in a regular GT, it's actually $300 more expensive than the Bullitt package, MSRP versus MSRP. Now, you know, currently the Bullitts are pretty hard to come by, so every dealership's mouth is watering and they're charging, you know, upcharges and markups on the Bullitts, but I don't think that's going to last forever. You know, whenever you can get these at MSRP, I mean, I got mine at MSRP, and if you look hard and you're willing to travel, you can get one at MSRP. But even if you're unable to find one, if you have a little bit of patience and wait, I think this is a phenomenal bargain, because you can get 20 extra horsepower, all the GT350 parts under the hood there, the intake manifold, the bigger throttle body went from 82 millimeters to 87, again, thanks to that Shelby component. And you get all that stuff, and you basically get it for free. Again, if you're getting this for the same price as you would a comparable GT Performance package, and you know, you could go and add some of these parts on with the Ford Performance parts catalog, you know, whenever they do become available here for the new ones. So you can do that, sure. And if you have a dealership install it, then yes, you get a 3-year warranty with that. But with the Ford powertrain warranty, it's 5 years. So you get all this stuff for free with a longer warranty than doing it yourself, and you save yourself the hassle of installing it yourself. You just get it from the factory like it is, and you're set. And so I think it's a really good value just for the regular Mustang buyer. Then you add in all the Bullitt stuff, which, you know, if you're into Steve McQueen like I am, if you're into the movie Bullitt, that kind of stuff all, you know, sweetens the package even more so. And, you know, I love the movie Bullitt, and so, you know, honestly, all that it took to sell me on it was the appearance. I love the dark green color. I love, you know, the discreet look, you know, all the little retro cues they have throughout here. I love that stuff. So to me, that's what sold it. The performance is just the cherry on top, you know, but I absolutely love it. You know, it has a higher top speed, 163 versus 155. You know, you have the exhaust that burbles and crackles more than a regular GT. You have the meaner looks than a regular GT. Everything just kind of exudes cool just a little bit more. Again, it's just a Mustang GT, I realize that, but it has that little extra specialness to it that really, you know, makes it the perfect vehicle, I think, for me. And like I said, I think it's definitely worth the money if you can get it, you know, to a price that's comparable to the regular GT. I think this is a really solid value, and I think Ford priced it very, very well. And yeah, it's a fantastic vehicle. So I mean, they'll be making them for 2 years here. Hopefully, people order lots of them. I know there's, I think, a couple thousand orders already, and hopefully there will be many more, because it's a fantastic vehicle. It deserves all the love and praise that it's been getting from the media and from myself. And of course, if you're curious to see how they hold up over time and what it's like to own one over the long run, I do plan to keep this car my entire life, and I'll be posting videos on it, you know, off and on, you know, for many more years to come, hopefully, you know, as long as it holds up and everything. But yeah, so definitely you'll want to subscribe for that if you're curious to see what the ownership experience is like in a Mustang Bullitt. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the Mustang Bullitt in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.